Hello family, enjoy this relaxing moment with AfriTales 38. Remember to subscribe and share your thoughts in the comment section, and generously hit the like button because it means a lot to us. Please relax and enjoy as we dive in the story. What's in the soup? The scream shook the house. Ada, call your father. Lock the kitchen door. She dey piece for pot of soup. The commotion erupted like wildfire. Plates clattered. Slippers slapped against the tiles. Lights flickered on. And there she was, Eliana, crouched like a thief beside the pot of ogbono soup, her face cut between shock and defiance. The pot still steamed. The rich scent of crayfish, pepper, and bitter leaf danced in the air. But now, something else had entered it, something foul, something unspeakable. Mama Neka stood frozen at the doorway, her wrapper loose, her eyes bulging. Her daughter Ada stood behind her, trembling. The shame. The betrayal. The horror. Eliana, you dey mad. Not this soup way we don't chop all week, you dey piece inside. You dey put shit. Eliana stood up slowly, her voice calm, eyes burning like someone who had been waiting to be caught. Yes, she said. The room went still. Yes. I don't dey do for weeks. Una dey chop well. Silence. Then. Slap. Scream. Chaos. That night, the family would discover that for months, they had been dining on food seasoned with hate. That the girl they once called daughter had turned their kitchen into a chamber of revenge. But the question no one could answer was, why? What pushed this young girl, educated, well-dressed, once loved, into becoming a silent poisoner in the heart of the home? What secrets were simmering beneath that soup pot all along? They would soon find out. And it would break them. The girl from the village. Before the stench of betrayal filled the kitchen, there was once a scent of hope. Eliana was just 10 years old when her parents handed her over to Mama Neka. They lived in a remote village where water came from a stream and children ran barefoot. Her father, a struggling farmer, and her mother, a market woman with tired eyes, believed they were giving their daughter a better life. She go school. She go be nurse one day, Mama Neka had promised, her gold bangles jingling as she smiled wide, her car glinting under the sun. Eliana had never seen a car so big. Or shoes so shiny. Her small bag packed with second-hand clothes and dreams, she waved goodbye to her parents and followed her auntie to the city, where the streets had electricity and people said excuse me even when angry. At first, it felt like a miracle. Mama Neka kept her promise. She enrolled Eliana in school. Bought her new shoes. She even had her own mattress, tucked in a corner of the same room with her cousins, Ada and Onika. Their father, Papa Neka, was soft-spoken and kind. He prayed every night before dinner and often gave Eliana extra meat when his wife wasn't looking. I won't make you better, he told her once, handing her a Bible. You fit be great. Eliana believed him. For a while, she laughed like the others. She sang during morning devotions. She danced at church parties. Neighbors praised Mama Neka, calling her a woman with a golden heart for treating her niece like her own blood. But not all that glitters is gold. Behind closed doors, things were different. At first, it started small. A slap when she forgot to boil water. A scream when she mixed up the children's uniforms. Stupid village girl. Mama Neka would shout. You no fit get sense. Then came the chores. Wake up before dawn. Fetch water. Sweep. Wash everyone's clothes. Cook. Go to school tired. Come back and clean more. Still, Eliana said nothing. She believed silence was the price of love. But as she grew, something else did too, something invisible but heavy. A growing bitterness. A quiet, angry voice in her head that whispered, "You are not one of them. You are not wanted." Then, In JSS 3, the real change came. Her classmates called it the circle. A group of girls from rich homes who moved like shadows and spoke like adults. They dressed sharp. They were feared. And they saw Eliana. They told her she was special. That she didn't need to remain the house girl. That there was power in silence, and control in mystery. They promised her secrets that would make her untouchable. Eliana was desperate to matter. To belong. To never feel small again. So she said yes. One night, she returned home with bloodshot eyes and a calf symbol hidden beneath her school skirt. That was the night everything shattered. Mama Necker dragged her by the ear, tore off her clothes, and beat her until her skin bled. She called her witch, devil's child, disgrace. School fees stopped. Kind words vanished. From that day on, Eliana was no longer a niece. She was a servant. But Eliana didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just cooked the soup. And one day, she did more than just stir it. Initiation. There was something different about the girls in the circle. They walked the halls like they owned them, shoulders high, eyes sharp, voices soft but firm. They weren't the richest, but they controlled everything. Teachers feared them. Students obeyed them. Even the bullies avoided them. Eliana noticed them long before they noticed her. They didn't wear flashy makeup or loud colors. Instead, they wore power like perfume, intoxicating and silent. And one day, as Eliana sat alone during lunch, chewing a dry biscuit and staring at the sky, the leader approached her. Her name was Zina. Fair-skinned, lips always glossed, with eyes that never blinked too much. "You have a quiet fire," she said to Eliana that day. "And we like fire." From that moment, Eliana's path shifted. The first test. At first, it felt like friendship. Zine gave her new sandals when hers broke. They helped her cheat in math class. They told her stories about a world where she didn't have to kneel to anyone, where people bowed to her instead. "You think your aunt is your savior?" Zina laughed one day. "She's keeping you small so she can shine. We can make you untouchable." The initiation was simple, they said. A midnight meeting. A blood oath. A small symbol carved into her skin. Just pain for a few seconds, and then, power. Eliana hesitated. But then she remembered that morning slap. The bitter sting of the word useless. The empty school bag with no lunch inside. The cousins who mocked her when she made mistakes. And she said yes. The ritual. It happened on a Friday night, under the old mango tree behind the school hostel. 5 girls. A candle. A chant. Eliana was told to strip. To write her name on a black sheet. To promise loyalty, silence, and vengeance against anyone who ever made her feel less. They pricked her finger. Drew blood. Burnt hair. Chanted ancient words. Then, Zina carved the symbol just above her left eye, sharp and slow, as Eliana bit down on her own lips to keep from screaming. When it was done, they hugged her. "You're one of us now. You'll never be poor again. You'll never be weak." But no one told her what would follow. The change. Days later, Eliana woke up feeling different. More confident. Bolder. Sharper. It was as though something inside her had been unlocked. She laughed when punished. She stared back when scolded. She began talking back to Mama Necker, something she would never have dared before. The woman noticed. "Eliana, you dey grow horn. You won't test me." Mama Necker spat one evening. Eliana just smiled and walked away. That same night, Mama Necker removed her from school completely. "You no go kill me with disgrace," she said. "From now on, no house you go dey. Cook, sweep, wash. You no be my pikin." And so Eliana became a prisoner in the house that once promised her freedom. No books. No friends. No future. Just the kitchen. And the soup pot. The taste of revenge. It started with a whisper. One quiet evening, after a long day of scrubbing, cooking, and being insulted, Eliana sat on the kitchen floor, staring at the pot of egusi soup she had just prepared. Her back ached. Her hands were raw. And still, she could hear Mama Neka's voice in her head. Dirty bush girl. You know fit ever become anything. Chop shit there. Her eyes burned. Her fist clenched. You want me to chop shit? Fine. She rose slowly, as if in a trance. Her face was blank. Her steps, calculated. Then, she squatted beside the soup pot. And for the first time, she desecrated it. The first night. She didn't do it out of madness. No, Eliana did it with intention. Control. Power. She waited until everyone had gone to bed. Then she crept to the kitchen, relieved herself inside the half-covered pot, stirred it in slowly with the long wooden spoon, wiped herself clean, and went back to her mat as if nothing had happened. The next morning, they ate the soup with hot fufu, licking their fingers, asking for more. That was the first time Eliana smiled in months. They didn't know. They couldn't taste the hatred. It became a ritual. Night after night, she continued. Sometimes it was urine. Sometimes feces. Sometimes she added both. No one suspected the quiet girl who served their plates with lowered eyes. No one noticed the dark smirk that flashed across her lips when she dished out extra for Mama Neka. The woman who once praised her cooking even boasted to her friends. My house girl sabi cook pass chef. Even my husband they prefer her soup. Eliana would laugh quietly in the kitchen. If only you knew. A growing darkness. But revenge is a strange thing, it feeds on you too. As Eliana continued her nightly rituals, something inside her began to shift. Her heart grew cold. Her thoughts darker. Even Papa Neka, the kind man who once gave her extra meat and prayed over her head, became part of her silent war. In her mind, they were all the same. They let her suffer. They watched her fall. They turned her into a ghost. So she turned their food into filth. Close call. One night, Ada, Mama Neka's youngest daughter, woke up thirsty. She walked into the kitchen, rubbing her eyes, only to stop dead in her tracks. Eliana didn't see her at first, she was busy squatting over the pot again. Ada gasped silently and stepped back, quickly hiding behind the curtain. She didn't scream. She didn't run. She just watched. And then, she left, quietly. But that night, she didn't sleep. The next evening, she whispered something into her mother's ear. And the trap was set. Caught in the act. The plan was simple. Mama Neka didn't say a word after Ada whispered what she saw. She didn't shout. She didn't accuse. She waited. That night, she pretended to sleep. She left the pot of ogbono soup halfway covered, just the way Eliana liked it. She sent Papa Neka to bed early. Ada pretended to have a headache and stayed in her room. But behind the curtain near the kitchen door, Mama Neka stood waiting. Her heart beat like a drum. Her hands clenched the handle of a broomstick. Her eyes burned. If Ada was lying, she would flog her. But if Eliana dared. Then the door creaked open. And Eliana entered. Red-handed. She looked around quietly. The house was silent. The walls, still. The only sound was the ticking of the broken kitchen clock. She walked over to the pot, lifted the lid slightly, and without hesitation, squatted. Mama Neka stepped out. Eliana. Eliana froze, her body half squatting, the act caught mid-motion. Her eyes shot open, her mouth slightly parted. Ada rushed in behind her mother. Papa Necker stormed out from his room. And in that moment, everything shattered. You dey mad. You dey piece inside soup. Not this soup way we dey chop since. Eliana slowly stood up, shame and boldness wrestling on her face. Then she said it, the words that silenced the room. Yes. I've been doing it. For weeks. And you all have been enjoying it. Pandemonium. Before anyone could speak, Mama Necker screamed and charged. The broomstick came down hard. Once. Twice. Then she grabbed a pot cover and flung it across the room. You this devil. I carry you from gutter, give you life, and you repay me with disease. Witch. Bastard. Eliana didn't fight back. She stood there, taking the blows, her expression unreadable. Papa Necker tried to hold his wife back, but she was wild, weeping, hitting, cussing. Neighbors gathered outside. Someone called the police. The arrest. Eliana was arrested that same night. The officers couldn't believe the story when they heard it. You dey cook soup with shit, one of them asked, his face wrinkled in disbelief. She nodded. Why? Eliana looked him straight in the eyes and replied, because I was tired of being invisible. I wanted them to taste what they gave me. The shocking confession. At the station, during her interview, Eliana confessed everything. The abuse. The initiation. The removal from school. The punishments. The silence. But it was her final statement that haunted everyone who heard it. They broke me. I just fed them what they made me, filth. The news spread like wildfire. Mama Necker fainted during questioning. Papa Necker sat quietly for hours, his face buried in his palms. And Ada couldn't eat for days, replaying the image of Eleanor's cold face over and over in her mind. The aftertaste. They stopped eating for days. The kitchen that once echoed with pots clanging and children laughing was now a graveyard of untouched plates. The once beloved ogbono soup was thrown out, along with every pot Eleanor had ever touched. Even the wooden spoon was burned. But it was too late. The damage had already been swallowed. Hospital visits. By the end of the week, Mama Necker began vomiting uncontrollably. Ada had a fever. Papa Necker collapsed during morning prayers and was rushed to the hospital. The test results confirmed their worst fears. Infections. Bacteria. Signs of prolonged exposure to human waste. The doctors were stunned. You've been ingesting fecal matter. For weeks, the doctor said, unable to mask his disgust. Mama Necker screamed until she passed out. The humiliation spread faster than the sickness. In the ward, other patients whispered. Nurses avoided eye contact. Visitors stood back. Nobody wanted to be too close to the family that had unknowingly dined on their house girl's vengeance. Media frenzy. The story exploded across social media. Housemaid poisons family with her own feces. Revenge soup, a true Nigerian horror. Bloggers twisted the details. Some said Eliana was possessed. Others said she was part of a deadly cult. Memes circulated. Videos speculated. Everyone had an opinion, but no one had the full truth. The comments online were brutal. She should be jailed for life. Where were the parents when the abuse started? That woman made her this way. And amidst all of it, Eliana's face went viral, not smiling, not crying, just blank. Papa Necker silence. He sat in the hospital chapel for hours, fingers interlocked, eyes to the ceiling. He had loved that girl. Bought her books. Told his children to treat her like blood. But he hadn't seen the signs. Or maybe, he chose not to. He remembered the nights she served him soup with trembling hands. The quiet way she disappeared into shadows. The slight flinch whenever her name was shouted. And now, he had poison in his blood. Was it her fault? Or mine? Mama Necker's wrath. Unlike her husband, Mama Necker felt no guilt, only fury. She's evil. Born evil. I picked her from the mud and this is how she repay me. No one could convince her otherwise. She joined cult. She bewitched. I gave her the word. But Ada, quietly listening from the hospital bed beside her, began to wonder. Did we really give her the word? Or did we just give her work? Eliana in custody. Back at the juvenile center, Eliana refused food for days. The counselors tried to speak to her, but she remained silent. Only during one session did she finally speak. I don't regret it. I just regret that it had to be that way. What do you mean? The counselor asked gently. She looked out the window and said, they fed me with shame every day. I only gave it back. Truths and trials. The courtroom was packed. Journalists, neighbors, bloggers, curious students, all squeezed into the wooden benches, whispering, watching, waiting. Outside, the air buzzed with tension. Eliana's face had become more than a headline, she was now a symbol. But of what, no one could quite agree. A monster. A victim. Both. She sat in the defendant's box, wearing a simple beige jumpsuit. Her hands were cuffed. Her expression unreadable. Across the room, Mama Necker sat stiffly, arms crossed, sunglasses covering swollen eyes. Papa Necker looked thinner, weaker, a shadow of the man he used to be. Ada sat quietly beside him, head bowed. The judge entered. The trial began. The charges. Eliana was charged with attempted manslaughter, intentional contamination, and psychological endangerment. The prosecution called her a calculated, dangerous girl who used biological weapons to attack the very people who raised her. She is educated, the lawyer shouted, pacing the floor. She knew the risks. She fed them disease. She had every chance to walk away, and she didn't. He pointed at her like she was a creature behind glass. This wasn't a mistake. It was revenge. Eliana speaks. But when it was her turn to speak, the room went silent. Eliana stood slowly. She didn't cry. Her voice was soft but steady. I never asked to be treated like royalty, she said. I only wanted to be treated like a child. She looked directly at Mama Necker. You said you saved me. But you turned me into your servant. You insulted me every day. You beat me like a thief. You took me out of school like I was your property. And yes, I broke. I lost myself. And I wanted you to feel it. The courtroom stirred. I'm not asking you to forgive me, she added. But at least tell the truth about what you did before I ever lifted a finger. Surprising witnesses. Then came a twist. A teacher from Eliana's school stepped forward. She described how Eliana went from bright and curious to distant and withdrawn. She was always the last to leave class. Her uniform was rarely clean. She looked like she never slept, the teacher said. We reported it, but nothing changed. Then another witness, a neighbor. I used to hear shouting from the kitchen. That woman would call her names no child should hear, she testified, pointing at Mama Necker. The only time the girl smiled was when she was outside, playing with our dog. The final blow. But it was Papa Necker's testimony that shifted everything. He stood, voice shaky but clear. I failed her, he said. I let my wife handle everything. I thought giving her food and shelter was enough. I didn't know she had stopped going to school. I didn't know she was crying herself to sleep. I saw a girl breaking, and I turned away. He looked at Eliana. You didn't just put something in the soup. You were crying out for help. And we were deaf. The verdict. The court found Eliana guilty, but not as a code criminal. She was sentenced to 3 years in juvenile detention with mandatory psychiatric care and rehabilitation. The judge's final words echoed in the silence. You were both a victim and a weapon. May your healing be greater than your hurt. Bittersweet freedom. 3 years passed like rain on a tin roof, sometimes loud, sometimes silent, but always moving. Eliana served her time at the juvenile center. At first, she was distant, withdrawn. But with therapy, writing sessions, and mentorship programs, the walls she built slowly cracked. She began journaling. She cooked only for herself. She read books about grief, trauma, psychology, and even poetry. And for the first time in her life, she started to understand herself not as a curse, but as a wounded girl who had never learned how to cry. Letters in the dark. Every month, she received a letter. Not from Mama Necker. Not from Ada. But from Papa Necker. They were handwritten. Quiet. Gentle. Always signed with a single phrase. Still praying for you. She never replied. But she kept every letter under her pillow. Release day. When the gates opened and her name was called, Eliana walked out into the morning sun, her heart heavy and light at once. She had nowhere to go. Her parents, ashamed and distant, had never visited. But standing at the gate, waiting patiently, was a man in a faded shirt and worn-out sandals. Papa Necker. He smiled, a weak, unsure smile, like a man offering peace with trembling hands. I don't expect anything, he said. I just came to walk you home. If you'll let me. She stared at him. Silence stretched between them. Then she nodded. A new chapter. She didn't return to their house. That door was closed forever. Instead, with help from a social foundation, Eliana started over. She changed her name. Enrolled in a culinary school. Took therapy seriously. Volunteered with at-risk girls who reminded her of herself at 12. One day, during a therapy session, her counselor asked, if you could go back and stop yourself, would you? Eliana didn't answer right away. She looked out the window, watching the wind dance with the leaves. Then she said quietly, I wouldn't do it again. But I wouldn't erase the pain either. Because without it, I'd still be silent. The family she left behind. Mama Necker never recovered socially. Neighbors avoided her. Customers whispered. Friends dropped her. Her pride, once iron, turned to rust. Ada, now in university, chose psychology as her course of study. She wrote her final project on The Silent Cry, How Emotional Abuse Breeds Revenge in Adolescents. Her dedication page read, to the girl who cooked in silence. I finally heard you. Final lines. Sometimes, at night, Eliana walks alone under the streetlights, the cool breeze brushing her face. She no longer flinches when someone calls her name. She no longer fears kitchens. She still remembers. But now, she forgives. Not because they asked, but because she needed to heal. And in that quiet, beautiful, haunted way, she did. Thanks for watching and please don't forget to subscribe and share.